I met Nicholas in the fall of 2021. It was one of those quiet, forgettable evenings where nothing special was supposed to happen, and then suddenly, everything changed. We met through mutual friends at a birthday dinner. He wasn't loud or flashy, just calm, thoughtful, with this easy confidence that made you want to lean in closer when he spoke. He asked me questions and actually listened to my answers, which sounds like such a small thing, but in a world full of people who just wait for their turn to talk, it meant everything. We ended up talking all night about stupid things, important things, memories from childhood, even our favorite sandwich shops. When I got home, I couldn't stop smiling. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, still wearing my jacket, thinking, God, I hope he texted me. He did, the very next morning. Our first few dates were simple. Coffee, long walks, lazy Sundays in the park. There was something so effortless about being around him. No pretending, no nerves, just comfort. He made me laugh until my stomach hurt, and he looked at me like I was magic. Within 6 months, we were practically inseparable. We'd spend entire weekends together, grocery shopping, cooking dinner, falling asleep on the couch watching bad movies. I know it sounds cliché, but it really felt like we were building something. Not just falling in love, but growing roots. By our 1-year anniversary, moving in together just felt right. Natural, like the next step in a story that had already been writing itself. I remember the day we signed the lease. It wasn't some fancy apartment, just a cozy 1-bedroom with creaky floors and a weird smell in the hallway that never quite went away. But I was so excited. We painted the living room together, bought secondhand furniture, argued over shower curtain colors. Everything felt like ours. We had this rhythm, you know. He'd make pancakes on Sundays, and I'd leave sticky notes on the fridge with dumb jokes or sweet reminders. He'd hum while brushing his teeth, and I'd tease him for never remembering where he left his keys. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was warm, and soft, and steady, and I loved him. Deeply. Honestly. In that quiet kind of way where you don't need grand gestures or fireworks, because waking up next to him every morning already felt like enough. Back then, I used to think love was supposed to be simple, that if you found the right person, everything else would fall into place. I had no idea how wrong I was. But of course, life has a way of shifting when you least expect it. Looking back, those first chapters with Nicola felt almost too peaceful, like the quiet before a storm you don't even realize is coming. I was so wrapped up in the warmth of our little bubble, I didn't see the cracks forming just outside of it. I should have known that love, real love, doesn't just exist in isolation. Eventually it collides with the rest of the world, with families, expectations, and the ghosts of who people were before they met you. For me, that collision came the day I met his mother, and from that moment on, everything began to change. Meeting Nicolas's mom was the first time I truly felt out of place in our relationship, and not just awkward or shy. I mean, small. Like I'd walked into a room where everyone had already decided I didn't belong, and no one planned to make room for me. He took me to dinner at his parents' house one weekend, about 3 months after we moved in together. I remember being nervous in that hopeful kind of way, wanting to make a good impression, to be liked, to feel welcome. His dad, Walter, was fine, quiet, polite. He said hello, shook my hand, and spent most of the evening nursing a scotch and nodding along to conversations. But his mom, Susan, God, from the moment she opened the door, I could feel it. That look, the one that doesn't say, nice to meet you, but instead, you're already disappointing me. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. It was tight, practiced, the kind of smile someone wears when they're trying very hard not to say what they're really thinking. She complimented my dress, then immediately asked if it was from one of those little online stores. The way she said it, I could feel the judgment hidden under every word. Dinner felt like an interview, but not the kind where they're hoping to hire you. More like the kind where they're trying to catch you slipping up. She asked about my job, my family, where I grew up, and every answer I gave seemed to chip away at her patience. When I said my dad worked in construction and my mom was a teacher's aide, she gave this small, almost imperceptible frown, like she'd just tasted something bitter. Then she masked it with another of those tight-lipped smiles. Nicholas tried to fill the awkward silences. He'd brush off her questions with a joke or steer the conversation elsewhere. but it was like watching someone desperately try to patch up a sinking ship with duct tape. And me, I was trying to keep my face neutral, my voice steady, while inside I felt like I was slowly unraveling. After dinner, I offered to help clean up. I thought maybe, if we had a moment alone, we could find some common ground. But the moment we were in the kitchen, she pounced. She didn't even pretend to be nice anymore. She started talking about Nicholas's ex, Melissa, how she came from a good family, how her parents had a home in the Hamptons, how she understood what it meant to move in the right circles. I stood there, holding a damp plate, not quite sure if I was supposed to respond. Then came the gut punch. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "I just hope you won't hold Nicholas back from everything he's meant to be." Just like that. No smile, no sugarcoating, just pure icy condescension. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. I managed to ask her, barely, what she meant by that. Her response, "You seem sweet, but let's be honest, dear. You're not from the kind of background that supports a man like my son. In the long run, that kind of mismatch always shows." My throat burned. My hands shook, but somehow I stayed standing. Somehow, I didn't scream. I told her she was being incredibly rude. Her answer, a soft, mocking laugh. "You're proving my point with this little emotional outburst." That was it. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just disapproval. This was rejection. Quiet, calculated, cruel. And the worst part? Nicholas didn't really defend me. After that dinner, something inside me cracked. I didn't say much on the drive home. I was still replaying Susan's words in my head, over and over, like a song stuck on a loop, only it wasn't music. It was poison. When we finally pulled into our parking spot, I turned to Nicholas. I expected him to be furious, to hold me and tell me he was sorry, that she was wrong, that he saw me and he loved me and he'd never let anyone, especially not his mother, talk to me like that, but instead he just sighed. "She didn't mean it like that," he said quietly, like I was overreacting to some harmless comment. "She's just protective. You know how she is." I stared at him, stunned. My heart was still racing from the confrontation, and here he was excusing it, minimizing it, making it feel like I was the problem. "No, Nicholas, that wasn't protective. That was cruel. That was calculated." He rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding my eyes. "She just worries. She thinks we might be rushing into things. You two come from very different worlds. She wants to make sure we're thinking long term." And there it was, the first real crack in us. The man who once told me none of that stuff mattered was now quoting his mother like her opinion was gospel. The next few days were filled with this slow, unbearable unraveling. He started coming home later. He was distracted, distant. Conversations felt loaded. Even the smallest topics turned into arguments. He began bringing up things that had never once been issues before, like whether I'd feel out of place at his company's holiday parties, or if I'd be okay raising kids with different values. Different values. What the hell did that even mean? Every time I asked what was really going on, he'd say, "I just need time to think." But I already knew who was doing the thinking for him. Then came the night he begged me to go back to his parents' house for another dinner. "She wants to apologize," he said. "She knows she crossed a line." I didn't believe it, but I went, because a small part of me still hoped she'd see me. Hoped he'd finally choose me. But the second we walked in, I knew I'd made a mistake. There was no apology. Just another performance. Susan played the gracious host, smiling thinly and offering me wine. Then came the little digs. The way she complimented my blouse, only to say it reminded her of something she saw on clearance at the outlet mall. The way she asked if I was still working at that same little office, like I was some hobbyist playing dress-up in the adult world. Nicholas excused himself to take a phone call halfway through dinner. The moment he left the room, she leaned in close and said, quietly but with terrifying certainty, "You're nothing without my son. He can do so much better than you. Don't ruin his life by dragging him down with your ordinariness." I froze. My fork slipped from my hand and clattered against the plate. My throat tightened, but I couldn't speak. I couldn't even breathe. When I finally stood up, trembling, she rolled her eyes. "See," she said, "this is exactly what I mean. So emotional, so unstable. When Nicholas came back, I was already grabbing my coat. She put on a fake concerned face and told him I'd overreacted to a little advice about wedding planning. I didn't wait for him to speak. In the car, I laid it out clear as day. Either she goes, or I do. And his answer, maybe his mother was right. You'd think that would have been the breaking point, right? That a man watching his fiancé get humiliated by his own mother would finally wake up and draw a line. But he didn't. If anything, things only got worse from there. What followed wasn't some big explosive fight. It was quieter than that. Slower, more suffocating. The kind of unraveling that happens when the person you love stops seeing you, when every word feels like it has someone else's voice behind it. I kept waiting for him to come back to me, but all I got was distance. And what happened next? It didn't just hurt. It changed me. After that dinner, I didn't sleep. I just lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how the hell we got here. How did the man who once kissed my forehead every morning now sit silently while his mother tore me down? The next morning, I waited for him to say something. Anything. To acknowledge what had happened. But all he said was, "She didn't mean it like that. You're taking it too personally." That was when something inside me snapped. "No," I said, my voice shaking. "Stop protecting her. What part of your nothing without my son do you think I misunderstood?" He didn't answer right away, just stood there, avoiding my eyes like a child caught in a lie. Finally, he mumbled, "Maybe she has a point. Maybe we are rushing into this. Maybe we are too different." Those words hit harder than any insult Susan could ever throw at me. I stared at him, willing him to take it back, to say it was just fear talking, confusion. But he didn't. He meant it. 3 years? 3 years of building a life together, and in the end, all it took was his mother's voice in his ear to tear it down. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just turned, walked to the bedroom, and started packing a bag. "Where are you going?" he asked, voice tight. "I'm going to Angela's. I'll figure things out from there." He didn't stop me. He didn't reach for me. He didn't say, "Please don't go." He just stood there, watching, silent, like a stranger. I took off my engagement ring in the car and left it on the dashboard. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. Angela didn't ask questions when I showed up at her door. She just opened her arms and let me fall apart in them. The next day, while Nicholas was at work, I went back to our apartment. Our home. Or what used to be. I didn't take everything. I couldn't. I wasn't ready to face all the memories still hanging on the walls, still folded in drawers, still living in the way the couch cushions slumped from where we used to sit together. I left my key on the kitchen counter with a note that simply said, "Please don't contact me unless it's absolutely necessary." Then I blocked his mother's number. I left Nicholas unblocked. For a while, maybe, stupidly, I still hoped he'd wake up, that he'd come to his senses, that he'd realize what he'd let go. He didn't. A few days later, he sent a text. "I'm just confused right now. I need some time to think. Not, 'I'm sorry.' Not, 'I miss you.' Just confusion." And another delay. Another way to keep me dangling on a thread while he figured out whether I was still worth it. I told him there was nothing left to think about. Either he wanted a life with me, fully, completely, or he didn't. His reply, "Maybe we should take a break until after my project wraps. Then we can reassess." That was my answer. I stared at my phone for a long time before typing out one final message. "I won't wait around to be reassessed, Nicholas. I deserved better. I'm done." I blocked his number. And just like that, it was over. 3 years. A home. A future. Gone. Not with a bang, but with the quiet, gutting sound of a woman realizing she was never truly chosen. You'd think that walking away would bring peace, that once I closed that door, the silence would feel like relief. But healing isn't always gentle, and starting over doesn't come with a clean slate. The truth is, after the anger fades, what's left behind is quieter, but somehow heavier. I wasn't just grieving a relationship, I was grieving a version of my life I thought I'd be living. And the hardest part? Even as I tried to move forward, his shadow kept following me. What happened in the weeks after I left? It didn't break me, but it came closer than I'd like to admit. The first few weeks after I left Nicholas didn't feel like freedom. They felt like falling. It was like the world had gone silent, but not in a peaceful way. More like someone had turned the volume down on everything that used to matter. I moved into Angela's spare room with one suitcase and a half-packed heart. She cleared space for me in the closet, left a glass of water on the nightstand, and didn't ask too many questions, which, honestly, was exactly what I needed. Every morning I'd wake up in this unfamiliar bed, forgetting, just for a second, where I was. And then it would hit me all over again. The breakup, the silence, the echo of everything we'd built. Gone. I stopped eating, not on purpose. I just didn't feel hunger anymore. Angela started leaving granola bars on the coffee table, and every now and then she'd gently slide a bowl of soup in front of me while pretending to scroll through her phone. I'd force a few bites down, more out of guilt than appetite. I couldn't even bring myself to call about apartments. I'd scroll through listings like it was a game, adding favorites, deleting them, repeating the cycle without ever clicking schedule a tour. It all felt so final. Like picking a new place meant admitting I wasn't going back. There were moments, quiet, cruel moments, when I found myself reaching for my phone just to see if Nicholas had texted. Sometimes he had, and I didn't open them. Other times, I stared at a blank screen and hated myself for hoping it would light up with his name. I'd never felt so ashamed of missing someone who had let me down so completely. The nights were the worst. Angela worked late most evenings, so I'd come home from work to an empty apartment, change into the same oversized sweatshirt, and collapse on the couch. No lights, no music, just me and the weight of everything that should have been. There was this constant loop in my head. What if I'd tried harder? What if I hadn't made it so black and white? What if I'd given him more time? But deep down, I knew no amount of waiting would have made him choose me. Still, the ache didn't care about logic. I remember crying in the shower, biting down on a towel just to keep from sobbing out loud. I didn't want Angela to hear. I didn't want anyone to know how badly I was unraveling. Work became my only escape. I started going in early, staying late, volunteering for projects no one else wanted. The busier I stayed, the less I had to feel. My manager noticed. She started giving me more responsibilities, like training a new hire and helping coordinate cross-department meetings. It felt good, being needed. It reminded me I was still good at something. But the second I walked out of that office and the mask came off, I was right back to square one. One night, I ran into Nicholas's brother, Nick, at the grocery store. I almost ducked behind the cereal display, but he saw me before I could move. He looked surprised and uncomfortable. To my shock, he actually apologized. Said he didn't agree with how their mother treated me, that he'd argued with her, that he thought Nicholas had made a mistake. I nodded, thanked him, then walked away with my heart pounding. It didn't change anything, but it was something. Validation, a crack of light through all the fog. But the real shift happened a week later, when Angela practically shoved me out the door to go to a party her friend was hosting. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to smile, or pretend, or meet anyone new. But I went. And that's when I met Matt. Not love at first sight, not fireworks, just quiet, calm, a conversation about nothing that didn't feel forced. It was the first time in weeks that I laughed without it hurting, and for the first time since everything fell apart, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end of my story. I wish I could tell you that things got easier after that. That meeting Matt was the turning point, that I suddenly felt whole again. But healing doesn't follow a straight line. It stumbles, it backtracks, it tests you. Just when I started piecing myself back together, finding bits of laughter again, reclaiming space that used to belong to someone else, life decided to test how far I'd really come, because the past, it doesn't always stay where you leave it, and mine was about to knock on my door, literally. 2 months after I met Matt, I got the voicemail. I was leaving work, exhausted but content, thinking about the dinner Matt and I had planned. I saw the missed call from an unknown number and nearly ignored it, assuming it was another scam about my car's extended warranty. But something made me press play, and there it was. That he wasn't doing well, that she'd made a terrible mistake, that she'd do anything to fix things between us. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, phone pressed to my ear, my breath caught in my throat. It felt like someone had cracked open a door I'd sealed shut months ago. I didn't listen to the entire message. I couldn't. I deleted it and shoved my phone deep into my purse like it might burn me. That night, I barely touched my food. Matt noticed. "You okay?" he asked softly. I wanted to lie, to say it was just work stress, but instead, I told him all of it. The voicemail, the tears, the fact that part of me, God help me, still wanted to know why. Matt didn't flinch. He didn't get angry or jealous. He just asked, "What do you want? What would give you peace?" It was the kindest, hardest question anyone could have asked me. 3 days later, I texted the number. Just one message. "What's going on?" I expected Nicholas, but it was Susan who called. Immediately, her voice on the other end was unrecognizable, no longer sharp and polished but frantic, unraveling. She started talking fast, apologizing for how she treated me, calling herself blinded by pride. She told me Nicholas had lost his job, burned through his savings, started drinking more than he should. I listened in silence, my stomach twisting. Then she said something that truly made my skin crawl. "He needs someone like you, someone steady, steady." That word, like I was a crutch, a support beam, a life raft, not a person. Not a woman who'd been shattered by their family, just steady. I told her calmly that I was sorry Nicholas was struggling, but I wasn't coming back. "I'm seeing someone else now," I added, mostly to remind myself it was real. She paused, then said, "Rebounds rarely last, dear. You and Nicholas had history." I hung up shortly after, but it didn't end there. She messaged again, then showed up at my workplace holding his resume. I told her she was crossing boundaries, that she needed to stop. She cried, right there in the parking lot, told me I was his last hope, that she couldn't reach him anymore, but maybe I still could. And the worst part? I felt sorry for her. I shouldn't have, but I did. That night, Matt and I sat on my couch, quiet. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. He was there, solid, present, and I looked at him and felt the ache of guilt, like I was betraying something I hadn't even committed to yet. I hadn't done anything wrong, but my heart still felt messy, like I was dragging yesterday's wreckage into tomorrow's peace. Then, a few days later, I got a text from Nicola, a long, stumbling apology, saying he'd made a mistake, that he regretted listening to his mother, that he missed me, that he'd been too ashamed to say it sooner. And for the first time since I left him, I felt nothing. No spark, no flutter, no longing, just a quiet, exhausted kind of clarity. This wasn't about love anymore. It was about escape. He wasn't reaching for me. He was reaching for the version of himself that only existed when I held him together. I was done being someone's glue. I thought that would be the end of it. The apology, the closure, the quiet letting go. I had finally drawn the line, blocked the numbers, closed the chapter. But some people, they don't know how to stay behind closed doors. Just when I thought it was over, just when I was starting to breathe easier, they showed up. Not a message, not a call, in person. And what happened next, it wasn't just desperate, it was unhinged. I was starting to feel safe again. Matt and I were planning a weekend getaway, just something quiet by the coast. I had changed my email, blocked every number I needed to. At work, my manager had even been kind enough to flag my file, just in case certain people ever tried to reach me through professional channels. I thought it was finally over, until there was a knock at my door. It was late. Not too late, but late enough that I wasn't expecting anyone. I had just set down 2 mugs of tea. Matt was sitting on the couch, scrolling through show options. I opened the door, and there he was, Nicholas, and just a few steps behind him, Susan. My stomach dropped. My breath caught in my chest. He looked terrible. Hair disheveled, eyes bloodshot, like he hadn't slept in days. And Susan? She looked like a shadow of the woman who once judged me from across her picture-perfect dining room table. They didn't say anything at first, just stood there, awkward, uninvited, desperate. Matt came up behind me. "Everything okay?" he asked gently, placing a hand on my back. The look on Nicolette's face when he saw him, I'll never forget it. It wasn't just surprise, it was something deeper, like watching someone finally realize the future they threw away had been picked up by someone else and was being cherished. I needed to see you," Nicholas finally said, his voice cracked, low and rough. "Please? Just 5 minutes." I didn't invite them in. I stepped outside and pulled the door nearly closed behind me. "Showing up at my home," I said quietly, "after everything." Susan jumped in before he could speak. "I told him not to come. I told him this was a bad idea. But he wouldn't listen. He's not okay. He needs help. And you're the only one he ever truly trusted." I stared at her, at the woman who once called me ordinary, who said I'd embarrass him, who told me I wasn't enough, and now she was standing on my doorstep, begging. I turned to Nicholas. "You should have protected me from her back then," I said. "And you let her drag you here like a child." He opened his mouth to argue, then stopped, and for the first time in our entire relationship he looked ashamed. "I know," he whispered. "I should have. I didn't see it clearly until you were gone. I let her break us. I let me break us." There was a pause, a deep aching silence. "I'm sorry," he said, tears brimming in his eyes. "I'm not asking you to fix anything. I needed to say that." I nodded slowly. "I forgive you," I said, "but that doesn't mean I want you back." Susan inhaled sharply, like she hadn't considered that possibility. "I've moved on, Nicholas. I've built something better, healthier, calmer, and I'm not giving it up to relive the same pain." His shoulders slumped. Susan said nothing. "Please don't come here again," I added. "If you really want to change, do it for yourself. Not because you lost me." He gave me one last look, long, heavy, full of regret, then turned and walked away. She followed. I watched until they disappeared down the hallway. Then I closed the door behind me. Inside, Matt was still sitting on the couch, waiting. He didn't ask what was said. He just opened his arms, and this time, I didn't cry. I just exhaled, deep, full, free. I wasn't broken anymore. These days, my life feels quiet in the best possible way. I wake up most mornings to the sound of Matt making coffee, the smell drifting through the apartment like a warm reminder that I'm no longer waking up alone or waking up sad. We moved in together a few months ago, not because we had to, because we wanted to. We talked about it slowly, carefully, without pressure, and when it felt right, we made the leap. Our place isn't perfect. It's not huge, not fancy, but it's filled with peace, with little routines that make the day feel whole. Sunday mornings with pancakes and music playing low in the background, evenings curled up on the couch, reading or talking about everything and nothing. There's no pretending with him, no walking on eggshells, just calm, steady love, the kind that lets me breathe. Work's going better than I ever expected. The promotion that once felt so intimidating, I've made it mine. I lead my own team now, oversee major projects, and for the first time, I feel respected. I feel seen. I've stopped waiting for someone else to validate my worth, because now I know. It was never about being enough for them. It was about knowing I've always been enough on my own. Financially, I'm finally in a place where I'm not just staying afloat. I'm growing. I've rebuilt my savings, started planning small vacations again, and even set up a monthly donation to a women's shelter in the city. It's not just about stability, it's about choosing where my energy and money go. I used to feel powerless. Now, I feel in control. Every now and then, something will remind me of the past, a name, a place, a random memory, and for a split second that old ache stirs, but it doesn't hurt the way it used to, because I'm not stuck there anymore. That chapter, the heartbreak, the manipulation, the version of myself that kept shrinking to fit someone else's world, it's over. Fully, finally over. And what came after isn't just healing, it's living. I laugh easier now, sleep deeper, love softer. I know there will still be hard days ahead, because that's life, but I also know I'll never lose myself again trying to make someone else comfortable. Not when I've come this far. I didn't just survive that breakup, I became someone stronger because of it, and standing here now, beside a man who chooses me every single day, not because I come from the right background or check the right boxes, but because he sees me, really sees me. That's the kind of love I always deserved, and I'm finally living it. There's one thing I've learned through all of this. It's that walking away doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes, walking away is how you save yourself. You can love someone deeply and still choose yourself in the end. And that choice, it's not selfish, it's survival. You are not defined by who couldn't love you, right? You are not small because someone else couldn't see your worth. You are allowed to rebuild, to begin again, to find peace on your own terms. And if you're in a place right now where everything feels broken, I promise, this isn't your ending. It might just be the beginning of something better. Thank you for being here, for listening, for sitting with me through the hard parts and the healing. It means more than you know. If this story resonated with you in any way, I hope you hold on to this truth. You are already enough, and the right people will never need convincing.